David May taking time to answer your questions. David May taking time. He's a busy guy.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Matt and Mike and Steven's X-Files CCG. We are joined once again by Mr. Dave May. Thank you, Mr. May, for joining us here once again. Thank you. And the, addendum for this episode is to ask some very poignant questions about some relics that you were able to send our way. Some original X-Files CCG Dunris relics. And we have a million questions, and we know that you can answer 1,000,001. So
before it's too late, and I can't even answer one. Yes, but love being here, by the way. Love being here.
So, Stephen, what do we know about the original Dunris days? Like, what were they doing as far as like prototypes and whatnot? Because a lot of those have come to the market recently, right?
Yeah, and I mean, from what we've been able to gather, especially with talking to Dave Frank, is the what we call slugs that you recently found on eBay are more or less legit. I mean, even though there may be some fakes out there, but I think the ones that you have uncovered are real, and so those are representative of what the X-Files CCG, or I guess at that point it didn't even have a name. It was previously X-Files Interactive Card Game, but even before that, when this was just a kernel of an idea that was being put together for its pitch to Donruss, because at this point it hadn't even touched United States Playing Card Company's doormat as of yet. So these early drafts of the X-Files cards were made up they have their own uncut sheets. I mean, they look like this, and the templates are of various colors. Like the one I'm holding here is green. Mike's got some that are in orange and red. So there's a variety of those that we've seen with a few of the cards representing most of the suits. I haven't seen any bluffs or equipment, or even not even any combat cards represented on there, but we have seen some early iterations of the cards as of that point, and so this is what it looked like prior to its pitch to Donruss.
Is Queequeg was a witness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Queequeg saw a lot. So, yeah.
Yes, that dog did. So, Dave, you were kind enough to go back into your Wayback Machine in your garage in your vault and provide us with some amazing relics. One of which I knew about, the other I had no idea. You were kind enough to send them over so that I could share them with everybody, and we just had some questions. So we know that. Let me grab this here real quick. So we know that Red Zone, top of the order. I believe it was last time you were on the show that you said if you open that up, you're gonna solve kind of a mystery. You're gonna kind of see where they were going, and I did. So I opened it up, right? And inside is sort of like this wall here, but then there's these two protruding packs, and underneath them some rules and all that good stuff in there, right? But the reason why I think you said that was because after you sent me this relic, one of the few handmade, hand-cut X-Files templates, you open it up, and there's a filing cabinet inside. And just like top of the order in Donruss, you can pull these, what would have been probably starter decks, out. And that is such an amazing concept and idea. And the first thought that came to mind when I saw this was, wow, you let that thing sit in a box for 30 years. It's pretty beat up. But the second thought,
it was a little beat up by the time I got my hands on it.
but the
Okay.
second question I had was, why did they deviate from this? Was it just because they lost the Dunruss license, or what happened that went from, because this is beautiful. This is an amazing, you go into a store, you see one of these sitting there, you're like, oh man, this is a brand new, oh my God, there's a filing cabinet in here. You got 2 starter decks. It was an amazing idea. What happened in between this concept and what it ultimately became?
Now, I can only speculate, because the 2-player pack, right? A 2-player starter, since the beginning of time, it feels like it was always something that was desired. I mean, you got to go way back when they first invented collectible card games. You typically bought a starter deck, and everybody had to go buy their deck and go buy your boosters.
Mm-hmm.
But even today, you can get a 2-player, starter pack in almost any card game worth its salt. But really, what the hope was, that X-Files was going to jump directly from the hobby, kind of collectible card, sports card, memorabilia, going to jump straight to mass market. It's going to be so hot, Walmart, Target, that people were just going to buy it. And so you wanted that, especially at Christmas. Again, Stephen, nice tree in the back. Especially at Christmas, you wanted this packaging, right? And it got you a slightly better ring, but at the end of the day, boy, so many twists and turns for this stuff. To get to market, the 2-player packaging had to wait. And before you knew it, we were back quite rapidly to traditional packaging, which again, decks in a display, booster packs in a box. I mean, we hadn't even invested in what we will call the J hook or the clamshell yet, meaning with backer board, where which ultimately that happened. You would go to this, even today, the packaging you see today, these concepts were cutting edge back in the day, but just for functionality, they had to be abandoned. So when you have these kind of opportunities, and this, of course, was all being done, all these graphics, all the packaging, all the layout was in LS. We've brought them up before in the past, kind of jokingly, just look in the back of the rule book, right? And so they were critical. And again, I'm not there for this specific conversation. Of course, I came in contact with Next because I was an avid fan of Top of the Order and Red Zone. Actually got to meet them personally for the first time. It's a crazy story. Me and my buddy got in the car in Northern California, and we drove down to Phoenix so that we could attend the Super Bowl party. It was Pittsburgh Steelers, Dallas Cowboys. And Next was exhibiting at the Fan Fest. Matter of fact, we rolled in there, and I had already applied for a position that they had published in Scry magazine. Me and Brian had both seen it and had applied, and I decided, hey, we're going to go down and meet them, because how else are we going to, not end up in the round filing cabinet? And I ran in and met Andy Grumman first, and then we actually played a little bit of Red Zone that they were demoing, and said, oh yeah, by the way, I applied for that position. And then, of course, while all that was happening in the background, the dream of X-Files had started to sprout. And it was from there that that I didn't get the job at Next. That's a whole different story. But we became playtesters, and we were at the tail end of what we'll call alpha. They didn't really send alpha out in wide circulation, and if you look at some of these images that you have, there might be some colors on there, red, yellow, green. These are some mechanics in primary, secondary, when you have the alpha play cards. Mechanics that were abandoned, but they were a hybrid. They were looking for kind of a random modifier, even though it wasn't truly random, right? Because if you could break the code, then you could kind of stack a deck to get the modifiers you were looking for. But again, if you look specifically on the Red Zone top of the order cards, or if you look in their manual, you'll see the explanation of these colors as a mechanic. But ultimately, that first revision of mechanics will be abandoned. But while they're working on that, and way back in the day when we first started talking, I know, again, shout out to Lynette Schmidt, because, again, all these things were being done in NLS, but basically best practice, common practice, was to create mock-ups and prototypes. And
ironic.
So, well, hey, I gotta be good for something. But again, so not that it's a spiritual successor, but mechanically there were some things there that were brought over, of course, because it's Duncan and Ron.
Yeah.
And Duncan's, kind of the lead. But because of playtesting and as just kind of the natural organic development of the game itself, we get what you now have today, and maybe not this strange hybrid between these sports games, which this is a mechanical function, and the thematical direction that X-Files ultimately took it in. So all these mock-ups were done to help both in the creative process, but in the presentation, and ultimately in getting the license, landing, if you will, the license, because those processes are negotiated, and really for X-Files at that time with Chris Carter and all the stories that we've told, this is even before we told the stories of the holy symbol. This is so they had not necessarily developed what we would consider a style guide. So like if you're doing other licensed product development, you might have guidelines that are already just given to you. I have a friend of mine who used to draw and still probably does things for Dora, and of course there's only a handful of people that can do licensed product development that's not clearly coming from pre-existing art. So when you're creating something from scratch, you have to clearly have approval, and so NLS would have been a key component, for lack of a better term, establishing the style guide. So, and they would have started that process prior to there being any kind of finalized mechanics. So you could say, yeah, we know we have to have agents and witnesses. Might not even had combat initially, even though that kind of did exist even at that point. But whoever's doing the graphic arts, know nothing about mechanics. Just you want pictures from the show in different colors, different backs, different treatments. Which eventually, even the X-Files itself, I mean everything, the fonts, the colors, and typically in a show, especially if you have kind of season by season, and they were really growing in popularity, so now they're starting to worry about what we would call brand management, and so you get a little bit of freelancing, in those infancy days. You can kind of make up some stuff but eventually you're not allowed to make stuff up anymore. It's got to be this color purple. And final thought, Fox and Chris Carter, 1013, they definitely established how they wanted the logo to be treated, colors. And if there was a new season, they definitely wanted to operate within their visual concept, meaning advertisement and marketing material. And so you did have a limited palette. But what they got away with initially with the card layouts and the complexity, like the original playmat, was incredible. Because so much information or so much detail creates opportunity for people to nitpick. And someone once said, 2 rabbis, 3 opinions. So oy vey, I can do those jokes.
So tell me, Mr. May, how did you come to acquire this? Was this during your time there? Was it towards the end? Was there, just a bunch of relics that you saw while you were there that were like, ooh, I need to have that?
I stole it from Dave Frank.
Yo, what the
Hi, Dave.
It's the one time that Dave May has actually stolen anything. Everything else, he acquires honestly.
So let's go into a segue here, because I have another item that you sent over, yes. which is another mock-up, by the way, but also strangely enough does not have any Dunris or NXT logos on it, which means it was a future item past this, right? And that is this box here. And this says extra value, 6 boosters for the price of 5. What can you tell us about this little gem and why it never came into fruition?
Well, yeah, so much of this never came to fruition only because of premature death, cardiac arrest. So that little gem was also kind of cutting edge. That right there was inspired by alternative packaging. And it's interesting, predominantly in Japan, but we clearly had booster packs. We had a number of booster packs from first edition. I can't remember why that was now. And so looking for creative repackaging, especially if like all the ultra rare packs were, say, removed out of, say, that population, you could have a lot of product left over that you got to do something with. So, but truth be told, that packaging really is something unique to at the time the Japanese market. So when you go back and you look at the emergence of collectible card games in Japan, and strangely, I got to go there, the hallowed ground of what is known as Yellow Submarine. Alternative packaging. So, that's the goal.
I do want to point out, Mike, that that what you have there, I mean, it's more or less finalized because it does appear on this slick print here, which I do want to point out had a street date of August 1997, and Mr. May, you can confirm that was probably around the time when things were when the death knell was starting to be rung, right?
Yeah, that's a whole nother episode. But yes, that's that was a lot going on in that little window right there. But everything came to a halt. But yeah, those mock-ups, again, very critical. Like those product shots, none of those product shots are really live product. Those ad slicks have to be out, at least 90 days in advance.
Oh, okay.
And so typically we fake it till we make it, and that's not uncommon in product development. But we were looking for alternative repackaging, and as I stated, that mass market, almost all adventure games, you know, everybody chased the mass market opportunity because of Walmart. And
Mhm.
I almost feel like, this is the story of Moby Dick. This white whale that I chased the mass market on more than one occasion, and it took my leg and my arm and probably took my mind. I mean, I we went at it with, and you guys have found some of the products we tried to go after it with. It was cruel. um, X Files. Uh, it's just interesting when you're doing mass product development. And like I said, you live by the Walmart, you die by the Walmart. And again, that wasn't X Files' fault. We had internal. We talked about that. These
Mhm.
cultures had collided. Old world, brick and mortar, food and drugs, stationery. These are little bridge cards with pictures of doggies. Now all of a sudden these crazy nerds, Hollywood. Uh, yeah, it was hard on the United States Playing Card Company. 100-year-old stoic. Now it's rock and roll, and we're dancing on the tables. So
Well,
which
and I mean, that makes sense to me. I remember in Missoula, we didn't actually have a Walmart the whole time I was growing up. It was like this newfangled thing that you had to drive 2-3 hours to get to. And I remember, God, it must have been seventh, eighth grade, before Matt and I even met, and my family decided to drive to a Walmart because, oh my God, it's Christmas is coming up. This is like a big thing. And I just remember to this day just being in that Walmart, just like, what? Like it was just this new world of commerce. And if you could get something into one of these locations, I mean, it was the equivalent of somebody with 10 million followers on YouTube selling a product,
yeah,
you know?
2,000 plus
So,
doors with a case per store.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I get it. That makes sense. And I mean, I understand, like they must have been trying so hard to get into that market. And, I mean, eventually, right? Eventually they did, right?
Well,
Too little,
it
too
is.
late.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, no, that's a whole other. Like I said, if anybody out there even cared about this history, so there were just a handful of people who had access and were able to do what we would consider some liquidation. This story includes an individual who kind of specialized in that. But instead of maybe going with the I guess the normal cast of characters, I'm probably not making sense, but guys would come in and buy product and then they would repackage, and they had a
Yeah.
relationship with Walmart and Target, so they were kind of getting things in there. Uh, but back to the core market, which is this comic book, slash maybe even game store slash baseball card shop. Uh, we discovered that you have to fit the footprint. A booster box is a booster box. It's got to be the same size as the baseball, right? Because we line them up on the shelf. And you got to sell. You don't sell or you don't have secondary market, you don't have a place in my store. But you couldn't get creative. I mean, we tried to do combo boxes. For anybody out there that ever tried to do a combo box, where I'm going to give you like 6 starters and 20 boosters in a display side by side, give you a mix pack. Yeah, those never went anywhere. I mean, so many things were tried back then, because we were still relatively one of the early uh, collectible card games, back to when everybody was trying to come up with a new way of saying CCG, interactive card game, expandable card game. But that's because somebody was trying to get a patent on mechanics. But again, that's a different topic for a different day.
Yeah, I remember the splash page where Matt and I historically played and got our first packs. It really was only three other games. It was obviously Magic. The big one in Montana was Star Wars. Oh my God, they'd have Star Wars tournaments forever. And then to a lesser extent, Star Trek. Um, Aside from those major three, there were smaller ones like Rage and the Vampire one or whatever that I tried to dabble in and I didn't enjoy. But the fact that the X Files, at least for us, was sitting, the counter was here, guys, here, and there was a pack or a box of boosters right there. It was front and center, right in your face, is what ultimately did it for us. Because if it had been on a shelf somewhere, Matt and I probably would have never seen it. So as far as marketing goes, they did to some extent, especially given Ronnie, they did their job. They got it out to the people and made them put it front and center, and it worked.
Yeah,
So
no, 100%. I have to give the team credit. Yeah, you have the power of X Files, but and again, X Files is for this market. For we call it adventure games, but the largest distributor was Diamond Comics. So you are playing into a comic book shop mentality. So the license itself, kind of like Star Wars and Star Trek, it definitely fit. So that part was almost self-writing, but you still had to have the relationships. And if it wasn't for the advertisement push, Inquest, Scry, really honestly, that was a big deal. That created synergy, and yeah. So again, it was not the product. I look back, and again, Camelot did not last long, but for those kind of 2 years where we demoed the product, really the two Gen Cons, uh, yeah, we had a place, and we sold product. Truth be told, you know, we successfully sold product in almost everything we attempted to do. And I kind of probably speaking in the future sense because USPCA Games only got to do that. But the spirit of that, as that moved forward, did successfully market and sell product. Not like we were giving, ice cubes to Eskimos, but at the end of the day, you still had to deliver the goods. Now, once there's blood in the water, this is always the issue. Once once somebody smells that there's something's not working right, then it's opportunistic. So it's either my opportunity to watch you starve and buy cheap and make a buck, or I don't want to get caught with this on the shelf. And like I said, still a complicated tale of kind of how things came to an end. And it had more to do with personality and less to do with product. Not that the product wasn't complicated. I think I talked about it as we were sharing, because sharing is caring. I was reminded of this. This is actually the original contract that gave the rights not only to X Files but to Top of the Order and Red Zone. This is where Donruss sells its rights to United States Playing Card Company. And again, we like to make sure that we keep the little tags in there, right, with the little edits and notes, because that's the best part of the book. But in here you will actually find tops. Like I said, it gets very complicated because what's the difference between a collectible card game and regular collectible cards? Because Tops had access to the sets, and Tops was like, maybe we want to get in the collectible card game business, but again, without knowing the sophistication of the negotiations, Leaf/Donruss had already kind of brokered a deal, which again I think has a lot to do with the power of NLS. Even though I did not work with them directly, like I said, my opportunity to be with those guys, well, I just, they didn't hire me. Next went with somebody else. So again, shout out to Dave Frank, to reached into the round filing cabinet and pulled Dave May out, because that's where my resume had went.
That's
Well,
because they filed him by first name, and so yours just happened to be right next to his. So
right. So, well, he had made it. He had still, even though they traded Dave, I don't know, I shouldn't probably put it that way, but yeah, we want you on board, but we just don't know who's gonna take you. But then again, it was, but that's the fun stuff, man. We were making games in Hollywood and, dancing on tables. What more can you ask for? I mean, those conventions, man, they were, yeah, you heard some of the stories. It was Camelot. It was the golden era. No one knew what was coming. We were just going places.
I thought about at FileFest getting on a table and dancing, but then I realized how fat I am, and I'd probably break a table, so I just did not do that.
yeah, those tables didn't look all that sturdy, so
They
that
did
was probably
not.
a
They
good
did
call.
The young man sport.
Yeah. Well,
And
Steven,
so-
do you have any other questions or?
Well, I did also want to point out, so as you were saying, sir, that it wasn't necessarily that there was nothing wrong with the product. I mean, the only issue really came up was with regards to collation and just how when you're opening up those Premiere booster packs, you were getting 9 X-Files in there. So again, nothing wrong with the game itself. It was just for the Premiere edition, anyway. It was just a matter of packaging, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one component. So yeah, I mean, you just got to own it. I got nowhere to go with that. For a
Well, you
lot
don't
of
have
us,
to own it. Dave Frank owned it with he did with the
but
Greg.
I'm going to defend Dave. I love Dave too much. I mean,
We all do.
you win as a team, you lose as a team. Hypothetically, for those of you who are into collectors of other things, finding actual United States playing card company packaged Magic cards, you can find the starter decks, and it should be unlimited starter decks, and it'll still have the United States playing card on the box. So super duper rare.
Wow.
So
Not on the cards though, right? Just the
no, because the Magic cards are the Magic cards, but the actual starter box will make notation.
Okay.
Matter of fact, if you're a real super aficionado of that stuff, then you can tell when it's Cardamundi, when it's us. There are color differences. We talk about Hickey, all sorts of stuff, right? And there's some killer era cards out there, and not just for what we got, but I mean, I got some stuff again somewhere hidden. So,
including you're hiding Mike somewhere as well, because we apparently lost him
I
somewhere.
talked too much about that other thing that should not be talked about. Not on this channel.
Oops!
Yep.
I just removed him when I tried to bring him back. Now he's back.
Sorry, Starlink.
No, thank goodness for technology. We can all get more than dial up. No, but so the collation was one component, and how shall I put it? I don't think Fox or 1013 gave a rip. They got paid.
Yeah.
We weren't besmirching the brand. The opportunity for USPC Games, was not just the X-Files. It was what's the next step? What's the next relationship? Can we actually get to that, NFL red zone top of the order, because of how the licenses were being managed.
Mm-hmm.
But again, never really came to fruition, probably because at the time it really was a small amount, a drop in the bucket. I don't want to call it a rounding error. The potential you know, was pretty high. My stories actually almost are. I'll have to go to therapy if I tell them. I just we saw companies making potentially more money than the United States Playing Card Company in the future, which they did, which was hard for the U.S. playing cards to understand because they looked at those sources. If I use the example of Pokemon, that one almost got me fired. Because yeah, to be around for that and to pass, but to the company's defense, everybody passed on Pokemon when it was first made available as a license. So for you way back guys, 4Kids Entertainment, they couldn't give Pokemon away, especially the way it was presented here in the United States. But from a collectible card game standpoint, it was the first game to beat Magic in any market. Nothing had gotten close. And not only did it beat it, it was pulling away in Japan. And whoever got it got a complete finished product. You just had to translate it or localize it into English. And, that license was worth nothing at one point. A $1 billion franchise that you could have picked up for less than 8% and 25K probably make you sick to your stomach. I know it just made me thinking about it again. But who wanted to have this occult based, children running around fighting little monsters, Team Rocket. We weren't ready yet as a conservative society. McDonald's passed on it. Burger King passed on it. I think the original, fast food toys were KFC. And again, I don't want to pick on KFC. They are the preferred Christmas meal of Japan by tradition.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible because that's what we hear, I guess, for Christmas is KFC, but it's popular. But okay, too much information, but it all goes into the story. It all goes into the story of understanding that little box you held up earlier, right? Because again, if it's not for collation and trying to move product and looking outside the box, right? But again, the license probably wouldn't even have got that color blue, teal approved, right? Probably got rejected, even though the artwork was probably inspired from a marketing piece. Like if you look at the ads are all like in Scry and Inquest, or even, whenever you have the ads like of the face on the screen, right? Those have to come out of 1013. Those have to come out of Fox. We can't make any of that up. There's a sub segment. Probably they didn't get made, but for some reason we were infatuated with these little hanging, discs that you would come into the store and they would hang the discs from the ceiling.
I was one right behind Steven.
Is he got that? Yeah, we were so okay. So there, I kid you not, there's about 20 of those. There's about 20 plus different designs to those danglies.
Really?
So talk about.
And I've only ever seen this one.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
Wow.
Yes, there's about 20 of those if we can dig them up.
That would be
something
for a show.
Just like the card backs, right? You have all these card backs. You got over a dozen different color combination card backs. I think I may have sent a sheet of card backs you hadn't seen before in that box, which you may have thrown away with the newspapers from the 19.
Oh yeah. I had actually seen those before. Well, let me grab those. Yeah.
Oh,
here,
wow.
Right here.
So, can you tell?
These guys right here.
Yeah.
So have you seen that style?
Okay, wow.
Now, where did you see that style from? Where did you find?
Actually, I got some of these from Brian.
So
Brian actually had some of these.
Okay. So again, there's so many different card backs, so many different danglies, so many different package options. 2-player, no 4-player, collectible box. Again, the box that was supposed to have the pewter in it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Do you recall, sir, like what some of the other dangle designs look like?
Yeah, they're usually always an X and a circle on a black color, but
Mhm.
you got to have them in purple and in red, and I'll go find some more.
Were there ones with like Mulder Scully's like half faces on them or something
Heck
like that?
no. No.
No,
Right?
they
Again,
never.
I've already, you put that face, you put their face, nothing personal, on anything, and you were going through an extra layer of
Licensing.
scrutiny.
Including
Yeah.
Gillian Anderson's like agent, right? The one.
Well, no, because again, those glamour shots, so you're
That's
looking
right.
at those pictures. So some of those pictures, again, they were just literally getting their proof shots, headshots, right? Looking for anything that they could get their hands on, which had nothing to do with the show itself, because that was a debate too. That whole can't use organically. You could screenshot. Don't like my hair in that shot. Let's do the beauty shots. Let's write the glamour photos. But probably the reason why we have those on the ultra rares is just by accident because of the work NLS did.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because somebody did something creative and it stuck.
Yeah, so I guess it was just a matter of like keep it simple, just go with the X logo, and that way you get more of these bits of merchandise out there, right?
Yeah, but creative people don't work that way. So at first it was go crazy, and then afterwards it turned into that. Well, we control everything. You're just a licensee, so you have to color match. So
yeah, Dave Frank actually mentioned that recently when I talked to him. I said, was anybody making more slugs even after the pretty much the Gen Con design, because that was the design for the most part that ended up becoming the game. At that point, was anybody creating more slugs of some of the original designs? And he said, absolutely not. We weren't allowed to. No one was.
That's why I was kind of prefacing what I said earlier about, well, the question of there being some fake ones out there, because Mike, you have some slugs in uncut sheet form that feature Marita Covarrubias, who didn't appear in the show until October 96, and who really, as the bio on that card says, she's a member of the Syndicate, and that really wasn't revealed in the show until 97, which by that point, obviously the game is well into production and actually close to, being on its way out, unfortunately. So that's one of them where like, that one kind of begs the question of whether it's legit.
I have my suspicions. I adamantly believe the vast majority of the items that I got originally were legit, just because of who they came from, where they came from. But I think at some point, opportunistic intentions may have came into play. Again, I can't prove that, it's merely speculation, but I talked to Dave Frank about it too, especially about the Marita. I can never pronounce her last name. And we did the timeline on that, and Dave Frank had said, well, it's possible because they had access to episodes of the show before they went to air.
Yeah, but like I said, the bio, which says she's a member of the Syndicate, that really did not come into play until, honestly, like it really wasn't like a full-on thing until 98, which was the Patient X Red and the Black two-parter, that she was really like a full-on member of the Syndicate. So that's really a bit far into the future for that bio. It was a bit prophetic, really.
It is, and that's why I've held on to these ones, and have not offered to give them to anybody or send them out to anybody,
because I'm not piece of history whether they're legit or not. So I say
well, and there's also the possibility earlier when I mentioned somebody had created card designs, sent them to Dave May. You remember that letter that you sent me? They sent you an Agent Doggett card.
Yeah, no, bootlegs. People were I mean, I think that should have its own place in the history.
Yeah.
Look, because we appreciated that fan engagement. I always wanted to capture that because that was going to be the source of future creativity. Thinking of future creativity, I got to get back. I got like 110 cards I was going to design for, Springfield.
Files, yes.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Now,
get to that expansion eventually.
I
You better be ready.
got all the card titles and I've got all the numbers. I think we've seen some good treatments for the faces.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we have to come back and revisit that. But yeah, that's gold too, man. So sometimes the best forges are better than the real thing.
I know, right? There's a couple of Scully cards that I have that I'll put them up here in post, but they're freaking gorgeous. They're absolutely beautiful. But I'm pretty sure the image. Oh, well, there's those, but I've actually got some different ones. I'm not even sure if I've shown Steven. But there's a couple that I have that are they're taken from later seasons, so they're obviously bootleg type cards. Do I think that they were made within the last 6 months? No, not at all. I think they're a legit relic from the game and the fans that wanted to create cards to contribute to the game, which again makes them, like you said, relics. They're gold, right? They're just not official by any means.
I mean, had Dax been doing it back then, he would have been one of them.
Yeah, but there's still here's why I still enjoy them, is because they're still a part of the story. Yeah. So that's what excites me, and I'll put all these cards up for everybody to see here, and you can make your own opinions about them, who made them, where they came from. There's still a lot of information that I'm trying to get that I'm having a hard time getting, and I don't think that it's going to matter how many people I talk to or who I talk to. We're never going to have truly all the answers. I mean, it's been 4 years now, and Mr. May is just now sharing this with me. I mean, what else do you have in your closet, sir?
I was gonna say, give him another 4 years. What might he find?
Yeah.
In that time?
We'll find out. Once the NDAs were signed, I have to admit, back to NLS, because this is kind of almost dedicated to them today. Wish they were here to answer questions, but we had, or they had, so very little will trickle out. So from NLS and Next Games, from what we're going to call the California branch, right? Southern California, La Jolla, LA. Not much is going to work its way back to Cincinnati. Okay. So the stuff that we do have, again, I like to thank Dave Frank. But back then, because of those NDAs, they had access to libraries of scripts, and they had tape. And so their relationship was different than our relationship. So if any of these items escape, it's really via the LA connection. Again, for it to come out of our office, which a few items did, but yeah, those are pewters, and that's got to come out of Cincinnati. We were responsible for that, right? So there's only so many ways it can get out, and so we didn't have direct access, we'll say, to those original files. And so USPC Games, really, for all intents and purposes, was a distinct, separate, almost arm's length, nation length, 2,000 mile length away from NLS Next. And those relationships with Fox, back to digging something else out, there might be some inner office memos between 1013, NLX, Fox, and ourselves that have all the names of all the then people on it. All the CCs are on those. Some of which grew up to have executive positions, let's say at Fox. You know, worked with some people who became some people. Probably not watching, but hi, yeah, remember me? No, okay, that's all right. But yeah, there's just interesting as you get into that component. So we didn't have direct access, but when we took over the graphic arts and the marketing and the advertisement, as that was transitioning, when the writing was on the wall that NLS and Next, unfortunately, we're not really going to be proceeding forward in this relationship. And maybe we knew that before they did. See, that could be something like, we don't remember that. Well, we had already internally decided that we were going to replicate, we were going to recreate, everything. We didn't need them to supply anything. We had everything we needed to move forward. With the only challenge being that we were still in infancy as far as directly managing the license, which one of the very last attempts for myself was trying to insert myself into that role and go direct for the first time, which again it was too late, and it wasn't going to happen. But again, that's just another story for another time.
I don't know, man. When we first talked to Mike Mackey, he kind of, I don't know. I just got this image of Dave May sitting behind a desk with all these artifacts, and Mike Mackey's like, I really like to buy these things. He's like, oh, you want to see some things? Oh, check this out. Like he
Yeah, I may have had my feet up on a box that had about 3,000 Deny Everythings in it. Using it as a footstool.
That one, you only say that one because that hurts personally. Because the story. You know the story of Matt and I going to every freaking place in town that sold that magazine. And Mulligan.
I know.
Well, I've got.
I am destroying them all just for you. Destroy them all. They're like, there's no way. Yeah. I mean, back then I could go trade 4 or 5 Deny Everythings for a Black Lotus. Can't make that trade anymore. But back then, that was about the go-on exchange rate. $50 a pop, $250 for the Lotus. Not that I ever made that.
One last question for you in regards to this, and then we'll let you go because I know you're sleepy. I'm sleepy. We're all sleepy. But my question about this was, do you know how many of these were made?
Again, I would have only said a couple, right? But I wasn't there, and we've already determined that they had the files and they had the inkjet, they had the technology, right? So that'd be like me asking, I wonder how many, prototypes Lynette made. She had the files. She can go back and print them right now. So, it does appear that they printed more or handed more out, which makes sense because I'll be honest, I wasn't there, but if it was me, right, I'm now Duncan, and these guys can print this stuff. I'm going to have them print a few. I'm going to take them home. I'm going to show them to my friends, right, because it's super cool, right? Around here somewhere, I've got some prototype stuff that's not this, right? Stuff from maybe Hot Wheels and NFL, and they're just cool, even if we never made them.
Hey, and you know what? We actually, Steven and I talked about this earlier as far as getting, some high res scans and some dimensions of these to DAX. Because this could be something that would be a really cool item to recreate, to actually put, like a couple of custom starter decks from the new seasons, season 3 and Blackwood, and it's a cool idea, and I'd love to recreate this. So again, thank you for sending this, because we'll be able to hopefully mimic kind of what's going on with this. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
Maybe one of these days we'll be able to find one of those machines that made pewters back then, and we'll be able to produce a whole bunch of them. Who knows? You already found a Heidelberg press.
I did, and I do know that Kevin Marion, he has one of those original boxes with the molder and the Scully and then the starter deck and everything. And I have been talking to him again recently. We've made amends from the fiasco that was the original tournament that I was warned about. But it is what it is. But yeah. So Stephen, do you have anything else before we let this man take a nap?
No, and I want to thank you as always, sir, for availing your time for us. So can't thank you enough. And again, you're just you have so much information and so much wisdom to impart, and so it's just we're gracious for you allowing us to cram every little nugget of information into these little episodes of Dave May's Corner. So here's to many more of them.
Oh, you guys are too good. All of you out there, thank you. Again, you've brought joy into this old, tired man's life. I'll take my nap now.
Well, thank you, Mr. May, and we'll see you guys next time on Matt and Mike and Steven's X-Files, a CCG. I'd love to. Do you know where it's at? Is it handy?
Oh, man.
We're not live, so
great. No, but you're recording. Let me just move this. Yeah, let's just make Dave. He's getting old.
Hopefully, Mike will cut this out.
Oh, it's just it's recorded. It's not live.
He's gonna totally leave it in. Why would he?
No.
It's gonna be at the end of the video.
Oh yeah, the outtakes. Yeah.
That's great. The blooper reel.
Oh man!
I think we need to keep out. Yeah, bring back outtakes.
Dave Frank's background. Yes, Dave Frank's background, not Dave May's background, but Dave Frank's background.